The 19th Ordinary EAC Heads of State Summit is happening in Uganda. Of course, Uganda is hosting this given that we are the current chair of the rotational seat, if you like. And a couple of things are going to be happening. The main event is on Friday, but there's a couple of events that are happening along the way. This morning, we look at not just the summit, but the whole East African community, the federation, how far we have come, what are the challenges that are still sticking out like a sore thumb. Are we making progress? And how do we deal with what needs to be dealt with? Let me get to my guests. Rona Serada, she's a regional integration expert. She's also from the Ministry of East African Community Affairs. Good morning.
Morning. How are you, Joel?
Very well, thank you. We also have with us Jessica Erio. She's the East African Community Deputy Secretary General. She was here very active locally as a member of parliament, as a minister, and she decided to run away to greener pastures.
Oh, I didn't run away. I was deployed.
You were deployed, of course. Good morning.
Good morning, Joel. Good morning, viewers.
You have been away for 6 years and your term is running out in April. I was joking with you earlier saying just remove those term limits and you keep serving.
No.
Because you're thinking your replacement is coming in April, is it?
Exactly, 28th of April. That's the last day I will be serving the community as DSG. But of course I will continue serving the community in other ways. And on Friday, we expect the summit to appoint someone to replace me, and the person also will be sworn in.
Interesting. What have the 6 years been like?
Quite interesting. It's been a learning process for me, but also a very active time for me. A lot of work, meetings running up to very late or early morning. Actually, like 2 days ago, yesterday morning, we finished the meeting at I think 3:30 a.m. Yeah, so that's how most of our meetings go, because decisions are made by consensus. So until you reach consensus, you don't move on anything, and especially in the Council of Ministers. But to make sure that really you resolve all the issues on the table. Not to escalate issues up to the summit level that ministers have disagreed. So this has to be resolved by the summit. So as Secretariat staff, we have to really play the role to make sure that all information that is required is availed, all clarifications are made, and answer all questions that keep coming from all the ministers. Sometimes you think you have resolved the matter, somebody raises another angle of it. So it requires a lot of patience, but I am glad God has given me that level of patience.
Well,
I've enjoyed it.
You have?
Yes.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Rona, as an expert, and you work with the Ministry of East African Community Affairs, when we began this whole process of reinvigorating the East African community, we began in a very high gear. We were moving and trying to make sure everything is in place and trying to cross all the T's and dot all the I's. Along the way, I don't know whether we still have the oomph that we began with. You know, we seemed to have scaled down a little bit. There's not as much excitement. Or is it just perception? I don't know. What happened along the way?
I think it's perception because it's now 18 years since the new EAC, I would call it the new EAC, came about. And along the way, we've achieved so much. In the ministry, at the regional level, we have institutions which have come up. The program in terms of scope and depth has widened. We are now 6 members. South Sudan has just joined. Rwanda and Burundi joined in 2007. So it's a roller coaster, and we think we've never slowed down, but maybe in terms of people getting the interest, because to me, the ministry has the mandate to create awareness, and we've done it and we are still doing it. But people now embracing and picking the interest and showing that they get to know what is going on, I think has slowed down. But on our side, we are still in high gear.
Is that so? We set timelines for ourselves at the start, for the community, for the ministry for which we work. How are we faring on those timelines? This is 2018.
We've done very well because we started off with the Customs Union in 2007. In 2005, that was the timeline. Then we set another timeline of achieving the common market, which we did in 2010. We set another timeline of achieving the monetary union, which we did in 2013. And now we thought that the political federation, which is the ultimate, will not have a timeline, but it will be a building block from all these other pillars which we've achieved. So we don't have a timeline for the political federation, but we've also made great strides.
Honorable, let me get to you. She's talked about, the steps that we have made, the customs union, the common market, and the monetary union. Where are those on ground? Because there's people who will tell you that they still struggle crossing over into other countries. Labor-wise, there are still many levels of segregation, if I'm to call them that, because locals will say, no, we want to give jobs to our locals. You're a foreigner. That still happens to date. I want to believe you get reports to that end.
Yes.
What are we doing to fix this? The monetary union, we had hoped that we would have one common currency.
By
that has yet to happen.
So,
and what steps are we making to be sure that happens?
Well, thank you very much. The Common Market Protocol provides for the 4 freedoms and 2 rights. The freedom for movement of persons, of goods and services, and of capital. Now, in terms of free movement of labor, you don't have to move everybody, because there are specific professionals that under the negotiation, there are specific professionals that are allowed to move. Because also you need to ensure that there is equality. You don't just move anyone anyhow. So there is harmonization of national laws. There are mutual recognition agreements of certificates and professions, so that when somebody moves to go and serve in another country, you know that that person has gone through the process, has met the standard. So the different professionals, they meet, they agree on the minimum standards, and once they have agreed and signed, then they can move. So the movement of labor is not just for everybody. Yeah, time will come when all the professions will probably be agreed upon, and then the movement will take place. But also there is ignorance. Some people do not understand how they're supposed to move, what they're supposed to do before they move, even the business people. Under the common external tariff, you need to understand what are the goods that you can move across the borders, the certificate of origin of goods, how do you process it, how do you move to another country with your product, what kind of certificates do you need to have so that it is free. Now, those who are, for example, small traders, you can move with your goods up to about $2,000 across the borders without any interference. But people do not understand some of this. So it's really a question of more awareness creation, what is allowed and what is not allowed. Because with integration, there is a give and take, but also the East African community is a rules-based organization. Rules-based. We are very strict on the rules. So if you don't meet certain requirements within a certain rule, then you will have some hurdles. Now, even for the business sectors, we have associations and umbrella organizations. National organizations, for example, the national NGO boards, they should be affiliated to the East African Business Council, the East African Civil Society Organizations Forum, and through this forum you understand what exactly you're supposed to do as an individual, as a business, or as an organization, a national organization. What is the interplay? How do you associate with your colleagues across the borders? So unless you understand these things, then you face problems. So those few challenges that some people have faced, and then they begin blowing it out, actually discourages people. But really we want to appeal to people that the East African integration process is a reality and it's a good thing for us.
At some point we had thought that we would first track a language that would unite us as East Africans, and Swahili came top on the table. But that has not quite happened. It has not penetrated as much in most of these other countries, aside from Kenya and Tanzania, who use it. Ugandans, I'm told, not many of them like Swahili for whatever reasons. Are we doing something about that? Because ultimately, if we are to unite, there are those who will tell you we need to find ways of uniting communication-wise, because if I cannot understand what you are saying, then we cannot be united for a certain cause.
Yes, we are. we've done, we realized, first of all, maybe let me say that the Swahili is the lingua franca of the East African community. It's embedded in our treaty, and we are aware that it's one of the unifying and bonding factor. So we have, as Ugandans who are not speaking Swahili, we have to do something to make sure that our people get on board. And the ministry has spearheaded a number of programs. One of them was to teach Swahili to art staff of the Ministry of East African Community Affairs. We had three programs a week, and I want to tell you that I'm not as I started. I was very poor in Swahili, but now I can speak some little Swahili. Then we took it to the business community. We've been training the Kasita, we've been training the youth, we've been training a number of people as a ministry. But we are also doing it in partnership with the Minister of Education to make sure that at least it's mainstreamed in the curriculum so that it's even examinable. But you know, with any language or any subject, once you introduce it, you have to have the teaching materials, but you also have to have the staff. So that's one of the challenges we are having, to make sure that we put in place the teaching materials with Ministry of Education and to bring in the teachers. The partner states like Tanzania and Kenya are very much willing to give us the personnel, but we have to have the resources to make sure that we sustain the program.
Some people initially had thought that why are we drilling down Swahili, the throats of many people? Because they thought, you know, how about we say, use a language like English, which perhaps is a lot more common among the East African community states. Because with Swahili, it's basically Kenya and Tanzania. All the other countries struggle. Rwanda, Uganda, South Sudan, of course, Burundi. And to some thought, how about we try out English, which is a lot more communal. Yes, I know Rwanda is francophone, but they are beginning to speak English quite a bit. And so let's talk about that direction. That also, we don't just look at ourselves regionally, but we get to have a global picture. Because ultimately, then our Swahili stops within the borders of the East African community.
English is used as the official language, and in all our deliberations we use English, including the day-to-day communication. But you know, we have to have something African, and we think Swahili is one of our languages which we have to promote. Like the Chinese are promoting their own, the Germans are promoting their own, the French have promoted their own, and even the English. So we think even Swahili can be promoted, not only within the EAC region, but beyond. Because I understand they were even debating in the AU whether it can be made...
It actually is an African
the
language.
African language.
Yeah.
So to us, we think it brings out our identity, and it brings out... We have so many common things, and Swahili is one of them which can unite us and create that bond and break the borders.
You talk about the bond. Honorable, why is there not so much likability for that language? I like the language. I can communicate a bit in it, but that's not the case for many Ugandans, for example. They are not as interested, and you can say the same of Rwandans, Burundians, and South Sudanese. They are thinking, wait a minute, this thing is Kenyan and Tanzanian.
No, I think, you see, for Tanzania and Kenya, they have been speaking Swahili over the years. And in Uganda, people are comfortable with the languages that they have been using.
So this one becomes foreign to them.
It's like, but what value is it adding? That's the feeling that most people have. In addition to the history that Swahili has had in our country, everybody says, Swahili is a language of the military, and it's a language that was used to torture people. So there are people who have memories, bad memories, of their dear ones who were lost, being tortured in Swahili and so forth. So there are those in play, but Swahili is spoken in DRC, Swahili is spoken in Burundi and parts of Rwanda, in Zambia, and I can tell you even there are people, Americans and other Europeans, who speak Swahili. Most of these diplomats, when they come to serve in Kenya and in Tanzania, they take Swahili lessons immediately, and they speak better Swahili than us. Now, when you go down to the rural areas, most of the people don't know English. Actually, for example, in Tanzania, their teaching system is that people are taught in Swahili up to senior 4. Is it P7? And then in senior 4, in senior 1 to 4, they introduce English. But they teach mostly in Swahili. Even they teach chemistry and physics in Swahili.
Isn't that
Can
a
you
problem,
imagine that?
Honorable? Because you're going to now
And
try
they're so
and
much
get yourself
used to
out
it.
there globally, and here you are for your, you know, your nascent ages. You're being taught in a certain local language.
I interacted with one of the permanent secretaries before, not the current one. And he says we are very proud because Chinese come to construct roads, to construct infrastructure, and they don't know any word in English.
They're 1.3
but they are
billion,
able to
in fact
do
1.5 billion.
So why
this
can't
planet.
we also promote Swahili, which is taken up also continentally? In Agenda 2063, Swahili is a priority. So other countries may also learn Swahili. And also Swahili is a language that developed in Africa at the coast through an interaction between the Bantu and the Asians. So it's a homegrown language. Why can't we develop it? It's a language that unites more people. Why should we concentrate on English, which is foreign? We can use English, yes.
You see, the Ugandans are telling you Swahili is also foreign. The Rwandans are saying Swahili is foreign to them in their small cocoon.
No. It's really not foreign because there are many Bantu words in Swahili, if you really took interest to learn. And how did Swahili develop?
Well,
it is foreign from where? How far is Swahili and English? If you compared them from us.
An interesting question, but look, this engagement should continue. I keep trying to learn some Swahili. People should learn it. I think it's a good language.
It's sweet. It's
anyway.
very sweet and romantic.
Is it?
Yes.
Interesting.
I don't know.
So there you are. You have a good excuse to learn the language.
It's a very romantic language.
Interesting. Yes. Let's talk a bit about political federation. How close is this? What are the timelines in place? But more importantly, how plausible is it? How practical is it? And what will it mean?
We have already made a decision. We started off by asking ourselves what kind of model do we want, how will it be, what are the implications, how will it impact on the current state of play. But we've now agreed that we need a confederation
to start with. And well, once we do that stage well, maybe it will lead to somewhere else. But the summit and the council, which we call the ministers, have already made a decision that we shall start with the confederation stage. And where we are, we want to come up with a regional constitution. And this regional constitution will set the legal basis upon which so many other things will come into play. But the legal basis will help us understand how we are going to have the central and the sovereignty, and how we are going to give up certain powers, how we are going to create certain regional institutions, how, it's going to set the legal basis and help us understand and agree on so many other things. So with this decision having been made, we have the constitutional experts. Each partner state has to identify two constitutional experts who are going to help us come up with a regional constitution. And we are not giving it a timeline. Once these experts sit, Uganda has already nominated the two experts. They'll review their terms of reference. They'll review the workload ahead of them, and then they will be able to guide us that with the regional constitutional development, it's going to take either 7 years or 10 years or 3 years. So we are leaving it to the experts we've nominated. But everything is in full gear, because once you've made up your mind on what you want, and that is the confederation, then everything else becomes a little bit easier.
Honorable, of course, in this quest, we are looking at a time where we can have a president of East Africa. Does that take away the sovereignty of individual states? But also there are folks that will tell you, you know what, each individual state has got a lot of mess. Can we first fix this mess before we bring it together? Then it becomes one huge big mess.
You see, in this world, you cannot say that let me hold this one and I first perfect this before I move to the next stage.
Maybe you can, depending on what it is.
It really depends. But in terms of our regional integration process, we have experienced that. For example, the customs union, you cannot say let's first achieve the customs union in full before we start the common market. and then achieve the common market in full before we move to the monetary union. You know, you start with this, but as you progress, you start the other. So now for the political federation, a decision has been made, as she has said. We start with a political confederation, which means you'll still have heads of state in the other countries and a bit of sovereignty. So how much do you cede to the regional level, and how the regional level will be led or governed, that will now be determined after we've received a report from the experts, as she has stated. So, and then also this will be subjected to further discussions, further agreements, and so it's difficult for me to preempt how it is going to be at this point. But the bottom line is that the agreement has been made, that we are going to move that way. But of course we also move with a bit of caution. How is this going to really play in our region? Looking at the Brexit, looking at EU, you know, there are so many of these things. So we are cautious a bit. We also know that as for Kiswahili, for example, people are so much used to it, they don't want to learn. They are used to not to speak Swahili, for example, here in Uganda. So also many countries are so much used to their sovereignty. So giving up power, you know, you accept, but at the same time, it's very difficult. But I believe and trust that as we continue to work together to discuss and being championed by the heads of state, we will get there.
There's a time that some countries were dragging their feet, and with specificity to Tanzania, they were not very excited, if you like, about certain things, and so they were a bit slow. And at some point there was talk about, all right, did the coalition of the willing keep moving? Are we at par with all countries? Are we moving on the same front?
Yes, we are. You know, we've talked about sovereignty issues, and to me these are key, because within each country you already have your priority areas, you already have your laws and regulations, you already have a constitution, you have so many things which are in place. So these are already guiding on the way you are doing things. And then we also have the regional integration issues, which we are all agreeing to. But I would say that Tanzania is not, how did you put it? It's not that they are against, but sometimes you have to be cautious. And for them, they do a lot of research. They do a lot
which we don't?
No, we do, but the pace, like I told you, the pace. Some people are faster in making decisions, but others, they want to see the nitty-gritty of things. How will this impact on the day-to-day lives of the people? Where are we going to get the resources if we make this decision? What kind of research can we do to inform our decision-making? So we also go through that, but some people take a little longer because they are looking at so many other things before they come up with a decision. So Tanzania is very much with us. It has been the chair of the EAC for 2.5 years, and they've made us move during their term. They've made us move. We've made so many decisions. We've achieved so much under their chairmanship. So you cannot say that somebody who has been in the seat for 2 years is not willing. So they are willing, and like we said, that under the treaty, the decisions are by consensus. So all the 6 partner states have to agree, and we are agreeing. The reason why we had to sleep at 3 is because all the six partner states had to make sure that, yes, we are at the same level, and we agree to the decisions being made, and all the 6 partner states are together. But like we said, you can also look inward and say, what are the priorities for Uganda? What are the priorities for Kenya? And how now do we streamline these priorities and align them to the regional frameworks? Yeah.
All right. Now that we've talked about, you know, the EAC, how far we have gone, the challenges, the progress that we have made, let's talk about the summit that's happening. Honorable, this began yesterday, not the day before yesterday, 19th. The big day is on Friday. Talk to us about what's going to be happening.
Well, from yesterday we had our Council of Ministers meeting. Actually, we've been here since Wednesday. We had what we call the Finance and Administration Committee that had to first look at some key issues at a technical level, and then those issues were presented to the council at senior officials level, and then to the permanent secretaries, and then to ministers yesterday. So we've really been very, very busy throughout. And today we're having roundtables on infrastructure, development, and health financing in the region. So today's 2 roundtables will come up with some recommendations which will be presented tomorrow to the heads of state. So tomorrow is a retreat of heads of state on infrastructure and health financing. Now for infrastructure, they've been having these retreats every 2 years. But this time we agree that health is a priority, key priority in the region. And if we do not invest in health in our region, then we will have, we will not have delivered something good for the people. So, we have so many priorities, but health and infrastructure this time are very key priorities. So the heads of state must sit together with our development partners and the funders and all interested parties. There are going to be exhibitions at Munyonyo, and the exhibitions are on already today. So tomorrow these recommendations will be presented to the heads of state. We want the heads of state to champion these processes. What exactly do we want to do in the region? The experts have developed the priorities and the key areas, but we need to present this to the heads of state so that they champion them. Implementation is usually at national level. So at national levels, each country now must also implement the outcomes of this retreat. And then on Friday will be the 19th Ordinary Summit. This summit ought to have taken place in November, but because there was a special summit, EU-AU summit in Addis, the summit, EAC summit had to be postponed, including the infrastructure retreat. Actually, they were supposed to be in November, but now they are taking place this week. So the Ordinary Summit will discuss a number of issues that have been processed at the Council of Ministers level. A number of these were decided upon yesterday already. So yesterday's outcome and a number of other outstanding issues will be discussed by the summit on Friday. But tomorrow they are going to discuss the recommendations from the roundtables today of the...
All right. How do we, in the language of project planning and management, how do we do monitoring and evaluation? It's one thing to come together, have meetings, put pen to paper. Do we keep track of these things? You know that promises were made, commitments were made, commitments for work to be done, for resources to be appropriated. How do we keep track of these things? Because sometimes, maybe that's where now trouble gets to develop. We have a good plan, we see it and put all these things together, but then when the rubber hits the road, it fizzles out.
Yes, we have frameworks for monitoring, and we have frameworks for implementation. Most of the implementation is done at the national level, but with a lot of close monitoring from the EAC Secretariat where she is. But like I said, we have frameworks, and we have set up layers. We have the first layer, we have the committees, the expert committees, which sit and now decide on what are the priorities, what is the implementation, what is the budget. This goes now to another layer, which is called the coordination committee, and the coordination committee is made up of permanent secretaries, and then we have the ministers. So each sector has a sectoral council. We have the sectoral council on health, we have the sectoral council on infrastructure, we have the sectoral council on education. So through these layers, we plan, we set the targets, we set the budget, and then we monitor. We monitor both at the national level, through my ministry, we monitor through the MDS, that is at the national level, and then we have even the web-based mechanism, which is electronically empowered, so that we are connected, us at the national level and the regional level, to see the decisions that have been made in each of the sectoral councils. Like I said, each sector has a sectoral council. What are the decisions that have been made? How are they implemented? And each year, each financial year, there are 2 sittings sometimes of these sectoral councils, which monitor last year we made these decisions. How have they been implemented? What are the challenges? How is each partner state implementing? So we have mechanisms through which we implement and monitor.
Even for the heads of state summit, like on Friday we will present to them how far we have implemented their previous decisions. So each time every organ sits, they look. We present a matrix of implementation of the previous decisions, and where we've had challenges, as she has said, then new decisions are made, or maybe timelines are extended, fresh commitments are made. So at all these levels, right from the sectoral committees, sectoral councils, council of ministers, and heads of state. And as she said, is a web-based monitoring system which we have put in place. So every sector or every country uploads what they have done, what they have not done, and then when we meet together, we also prepare this, summarize it, and then we propose the recommendations for the way forward.
Okay, we are following this summit. At NTV, we are following what's happening at Munyonyo, so we'll keep tabs on that to keep our viewers informed on what's going on. But thank you, ladies, for joining us this morning. Jessica Rio, the EAC Deputy Secretary General, and Rona Serwada, Regional Integration Expert from the Ministry of East African Community Affairs. Thank you, ladies, for talking to us.
Thank you very much, Joel.
All right, that's it for the big story. Thank you for joining us. My name is Joel Senyonyi. Good morning.
You're watching